Every gambler knows that the secret to surviving,
I don't wanna take advice from fools.
you always won every time you placed a bet.
Money, that's what I want.
I'm Joe Duffy, CEO of OffshoreInsiders.com. We're going to talk about yards per point and how to exploit it in handicapping. And you know what? A lot of you are going to be surprised on the fact-based findings. Every season is an enriching experience in sports betting. I constantly reflect and critique myself, evaluating what modifications have been implemented by the odds makers and how the alterations in the sports landscape affect handicapping. High on the register of strategy refinements many football seasons ago was the understanding that I stumbled upon a football handicapping holy grail about a quarter century ago and let it slide through my fingertips. Look, in the pre-internet days, one of my top sources for data was the Sports and Gaming Newswire, one of Jim Feist's enterprises. I believe that was the first time I encountered the yards per point statistics. On offense, it's calculated by yards gained divided by points scored. On defense, it's yards allowed divided by points given up. The supposition that it measures efficiency on both sides of the ball. A low number on offense is good, meaning a team does not waste yardage or leave points on the field, so to speak. A high number on defense is good, meaning a lot of successful defensive stands, and in some cases could be a quote-unquote bend, but don't break defense. However, conventional thinking, which is handicapping's ultimate oxymoron, would say bet on the efficient teams against the inefficient. The stat proved not only worthless, but if anything, one would be better off fading the statistic. That is, one should bet on the least efficient team. Here is that magic phrase again. Say it with me. You know it's coming if you've been with me for many years. Regression to the mean. In fact, based on net yards per play, offensive yards per play minus offensive yards per play allowed, or I guess defensive yards per play allowed, favorites with a net edge of at least 2 yards per play are a go against of 248, 208, and 7. So yeah, statistically, the worst team as measured by net yards per play is a pretty good bet on. I've got a subsystem on our database at OffshoreInsiders.com that's even better. And make sure you're with me this football season, of course. I record this before the 2020 NFL season. Please be a 2020 NFL season, full season, in fact. Now, that being said, such teams that are underdogs despite an efficiency edge are 43, 32, and 1. Perhaps this 57.3 angle, albeit with a low sample size, suggests a team is what the stats say they are. That is, when a statistically better team is getting points, take the dog. Now look, I've typed countless articles and certainly recorded sports betting podcasts on how we measure the accuracy and validity of a team's performance. In summation, I exploit net yards record. A team that gets more yards wins. In other words, that is, a team that gets more net yards would be the quote-unquote winner in this category, even if they lost the game outright, while others use straight-up one-loss record, so comparing the two. And we use net yards per game comparisons where the squares employ points per game. Others rank by total yards per game in passing, rushing, and overall, both offensively and defensively. In lieu of that, we use the more reliable yards per rush, yards per pass, and yards per play relative to the cumulative average of their opponents to date. Fox Sheets is very good for that statistic. Now, for elaboration, visit the archive sports betting articles that we've got at joeduffy.net, but our supposition that these stats demonstrate which teams outplay or underplay their stats, and hence what teams have the biggest upside and which teams have the biggest downside, or insert the terms overvalued and undervalued. Remember, a team's Vegas offshore value is most affected by their performance to date. But the teams that have the best, yes, we said the best yards per point stats are teams that are going to be overvalued, and teams with the worst are going to be undervalued. Why? The most efficient teams can only improve by maintaining that high bar they've set for themselves while increasing their actual production. The squads, for example, that waste offensive yardage by not converting them into points, that is the bad yards per point rating on offense, have demonstrated they're capable of more than their bottom line production has shown. So they only have to exceed that lower bar. There is little debate that poor efficiency is more correctable than poor production. Remember, it's not like one can retroactively bet stats. The more efficient teams will have the best spread records to date for the most part. As gamblers, we want to know beforehand which teams will have a reversal of fortune, literally. Many years ago, I beta tested, tracked but did not bet this theory. Voila! Yes, the teams that were wasting yards did have the biggest upside, and the least wasteful teams did have the biggest downside. Essentially, it proved to be a great way to buy low and sell high and apply it to handicapping. Best of all, the more the previously referenced stats, net yardage, yards per rush, play, pass, and yards per point theories corroborated each other, not surprisingly, the stronger the play. If the data contradicted, of course, it meant there was perhaps no statistical angle to exploit. Well, visit me, Joe Duffy's Picks at offshoreinsiders.com for the best plays in the handicapping industry, and you've got more than 32 years of professional experience at your fingertips at offshoreinsiders.com.